Well, Jim Rogers has been a bear on Russia for decades, but he now seems more willing to give the Russian bear a hug. He recently signed on as advisor to the agricultural fund run by Russian state-owned banking group VTB. The commodities guru said in mid-September, when he took the job, that Russia and the surrounding region have all the ingredients needed to become the world's agricultural powerhouse. The chairman of Rogers Holdings and Beeland Interests is perhaps best known for co-founding the Quantum Fund with George Soros in the 1970s. Jim Rogers joins us today from New York, where he's at the NASDAQ. Good to have you back with us, sir.
I'm delighted to be here, Howard.
Thank you. So a broad question, first of all. Stanley Fischer, the governor of the Bank of Israel, speaking at these IMF meetings in Tokyo, said that the world is, quote, awfully close to another global recession. Do you agree with that?
Well, of course, we are going to have another recession. We haven't even gotten out of the first recession, I don't think, but certainly by 2013, 2014, we're going to have serious problems again, Howard. You should be very worried. You should be getting prepared. It's not going to be fun.
And getting prepared, following up on our last conversation about a month ago, it's still hard assets from your point of view?
Well, what I own, and who knows if I'm right, I own currencies and I own real assets, mainly agriculture, yes. But, I mean, I make plenty of mistakes, and I'm short stocks. I should quickly add to you, I'm short stocks.
You're short stocks? Be a little more specific. What are you short?
Well, I'm sure mainly emerging market stocks. I'm certainly not short Canada. Goodness knows, not Canada, Howard. Emerging market stocks, some technology stocks in the U.S., and I'm mainly short ETFs these days. I've gotten pretty lazy.
So when you say you're short emerging markets, can you be more specific about which ones?
Well, I don't want to go out, bad-mouthing particular countries, but I'm short India, for instance, and some of the ones that people think are really good markets.
And when you say you're short tech stocks, are you short Apple?
Apple's in all the ETFs. You can't afford to avoid. There's no way to avoid Apple these days. If you want to be long or short, it permeates the markets. So
what about what David Rosenberg, chief economist and strategist for one of our high net worth companies here, Gluskin Sheff, said today? The odds of a major stimulus plan out of China continue to march higher. He thinks after the government transition is complete in China, you're going to see that. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's what's going to happen?
Well, first of all, China has saved a lot of money for a rainy day, and when it starts raining, they usually spend some of it. But, Howard, very interesting. In China now, they're starting to listen to some of the more free market economists. They realize that Keynesian economics has not worked in the West, that it has failed miserably in the West, and they're starting to listen to some other points of view. So it will be very interesting to see. I would expect them to spend some of that money they've saved up. But I also know that they are questioning the Keynesianism just like you should be and Westerners should be as well.
And what do you expect from the new leadership there?
Well, the new leadership is trying to keep the economy going. It's like the new leadership in every country in the world. Have you ever heard of a new leadership saying, well, it's going to be a disaster. I'm here to ruin things for you. No, they're all going to try to keep things going.
What about Russia? The last time we talked, you told us you were warming up to Russia for the first time, I think in 46 years, since your first trip there in 1966. Since then, you have signed on as an advisor to this particular fund that I mentioned in the introduction. What does that mean? What specifically are you going to be doing for them?
Well, I'm going to be talking to them about agriculture, both in Russia and outside of Russia, and how I see things developing in agriculture. I'm extremely optimistic about agriculture, probably more than any other economic sector, or any more than I can think of right now anyway. So we're going to be trying to make money in agriculture in Russia. I have been negative on Russia, as you point out, for 46 years, actually since 1917, if I could go back that far. But now I think I see positive changes taking place, to my astonishment, Howard, but I seem to be seeing changes taking place.
What are the things that you are seeing change that are giving you the wherewithal, the intestinal fortitude, if I can put it that way, to get involved?
Well, mainly it's Mr. Putin. You know, unless Mr. Putin changes, it's irrelevant what else happens in Russia. But I see Mr. Putin and others setting up investment funds in Russia where the Russians are going to invest side by side with people. And if they make money, we make money. And if we lose money, they lose money. But always before, since 1917, the Russians would say, put your money here and you'll get rich. As soon as you put your money there, they take it away from you. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. Something has happened to Mr. Putin, I think, so that he has realized he has to play the game the way the West of us play it.
And so which commodities in Russia, which ag commodities are you most excited about?
Well, Russia can only produce what Russia can produce. Now, it's a gigantic country, but it depends on the area. Up in the north, you're not likely to produce peaches. You know, it just depends on where you are and in which part of the country. Look at a map, Howard. It's even bigger than Canada, believe it or not. So there are lots of possibilities, and it usually depends on the area and the farmers more than anything else.
Wheat, specifically?
Oh, yeah, of course. They can produce huge amounts of wheat in Russia, staggering amounts of wheat. Just like Canada.
So look, on agricultural inventories, give me a number or a couple of numbers that would shock me about agricultural inventories.
Well, Howard, you probably know that agricultural inventories are near historic lows. For the last decade, the world has been consuming more than it has been producing for many, many reasons. And the inventories are going lower and lower. It doesn't matter which one. As a general statement, agricultural inventories are low. I mean, you want me to get into a hot tips game, but I'm not smart enough to do hot tips, Howard. You should watch BNN. They have all sorts of hot tips on BNN.
I'm not asking for any hot tips. I'm just asking for things that might be markers.
Well, inventory to consumption ratio is down to about 14% for agricultural ratios. In the 80s, when it was at its worst, it was up around in the mid-30s, around 35%. It has worked its way down over the past 30 years, so that now we're near historic lows for inventories to consumption ratios.
Let me move to another area. You've mentioned Canada a couple of times. We were talking about China earlier. Do you think CNOOC, the state-owned oil company in China, should be allowed to buy Nexen? And if so, what kind of conditions would you attach to it?
Absolutely. I mean, isn't Canada a capitalist country where there's a free movement of capital in and out of Canada, just like it should be in the rest of the world as well?
The United States didn't allow it. The United States didn't allow CNOOC to buy Unocal in 2005. And I thought the United States was a capitalist country.
If you were around in 2005, you would have heard me shrieking to the rooftops. What are they doing? You know, it's a horrible example to set for the rest of the world. It's because some congressman tried to protect their constituents. There's no rationale that one can defend for that. But I would hope that Canada would be freer and open, and Canada certainly. One of your largest trading partners now is Canada, with China, and they can be much, much, much bigger, as you know. If I were Canada, I would open up to everybody. You're a great country. You're a huge country. You don't have to worry anymore. This is 2012, 2015. You don't have to worry about whatever you're worried about.
What about the energy sector in the United States? Do you think that in the foreseeable future, the United States can become energy independent?
Well, there are people who are projecting that because we've got all this shale gas and shale oil. I'm not sure. I know that the shale gas bubble, it looks like it might have been a bubble, is certainly diminishing. As you know, the number of rigs drilling for shale gas has gone down by 75% in the last couple of years. So, you know, those wells are very short-lived and the reserves are not very great. The production is not very great. I don't have a clue, Howard. I'm not smart enough to know things like that. I do know it's a great possibility, and we'll see.
So how much energy infrastructure do you think will be built, though, say over the next 10, 20 years?
Well, as long as this gas and this oil, well, the oil is more likely to be the oil because the gas has turned out to be very short-lived. Those wells diminish certainly within almost within a month in some cases. With the oil, certainly as long as those wells turn out to be reasonably long-lived, then you will have pipelines and everything else built in. People like money. There's no question about that. That's what capitalism is all about. If the wells are there and the reserves are there, people will build the infrastructure in order to make some money.
Just about 20 seconds left. You know, I'd love to know what happens if you and Warren Buffett were trapped in an elevator for a couple hours. He hates commodities. You love him. What would you say to convince him? You got 15 seconds.
Buy low and sell high.
All right. Well, you know, you've left me speechless. I got to leave it there. It's great to have you back.
Thank you, Howard. Let's do it again.
Thank you, sir.
Let's do it again. Thank you.
That's Jim Rogers, chairman of Rogers Holdings, joining us from New York. If you missed any of today's program, watch it online at bnn.ca. Also, any comments about the show, send us an email at headline@bnn.ca. Catch us on the repeat as well at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. You're watching Headline on BNN.